Earlier this offseason, the Phoenix Suns committed a record-setting amount of money to Devin Booker, and I'm here to tell you that just got better. Welcome into a Trending Edition mini-pod. I am Erik Ruby, back in Studio K, presented by Circle K. Before we get into a De'Aaron Fox, a Devin Booker comparison, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Off-season content always continues here over at PHNX and PHNX Suns. Don't miss anything. If you're on audio, 5-star reviews go a long way. And by the way, there are sometimes audio exclusives, so make sure that you are subscribed to our audio account, and make sure you are also subscribed to PHNX Sports if you're only an audio listener, because sometimes there are YouTube exclusives. But all of that out of the way, paying money and max money specifically to non-top 5, some non-top 10 players in the NBA has been a controversial thing as of late in this NBA offseason, as of course the CBA has increasingly restricted teams from spending money, especially signing multiple max contract players, multiple high-level stars onto one team, and giving pretty severe penalties for trying to do so. Of course, this coming off of the Phoenix Suns trying to make it work with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, 3 max-level players, Bradley Beal being the highest-paid player out of those 3, which is still fun to think about. But when Devin Booker signed his 2-year, $145 million extension, his historic one that made him the highest paid player per annual average value over those final 2 years of his contract, a lot was said about how he's not worth it. He doesn't deserve to be paid on the likes of a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, on the likes of a Nikola Jokic, on the likes of a Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Devin Booker is not those guys. But a lot of people, including me here, feel like that was the right move for a couple of different reasons. Now, obviously, one of those reasons being the fact that by the time that 2-year contract extension kicks in, which keeps him under contract until the 2029-2030 season, he will no longer be the highest paid annual average player in the NBA. Somebody's going to sign a higher contract from now until then. Another part of it is, of course, committing to a player that spent his entire career with you and likely wants to spend his entire career with you. And also, you just traded Kevin Durant, who was not under contract for an extended period of time. And if he was, you probably could have gotten more back. But I think it just got better because of this De'Aaron Fox deal. Now, I'm not here to tell you that De'Aaron Fox is a bad NBA player. In fact, I think he's good. Has he steadily improved like he did his first couple seasons in the NBA? I would say no. Obviously, last season he dealt with an injury, changing teams. That dropped his points per games down a little bit, even though he was averaging 25, which would be almost a career high for him during the 45 games that he played for Sacramento. But then over the 17 games that he played in San Antonio, of course, going out with the finger injury after that, averaged 19.7 points per game. De'Aaron Fox recently signed a 4-year max contract extension with the San Antonio Spurs. He'll earn just over $37 million a year. That's a lot of money. A lot of money for De'Aaron Fox. Now listen, I think that in a vacuum, maybe a couple of years ago, you would look at De'Aaron Fox and say that is absolutely, without a doubt, unequivocally a max contract player. Now, in the modern NBA, there has to be this differentiating factor, right, between max and non-max players. Because before it was, yep, you throw the max and you move on. Now it's not really like that in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox is not as good of a player as Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker, if you want to be low on him and call him a top 15 player in the league, I think he's closer to top 10 in that top 15, but I would understand after last season, the defensive struggles, the lack of team success, that you want to knock him down. Now, I know some people say he's not top 20. I know some people say he's not top 25. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And for De'Aaron Fox, I don't even know where he stands among point guards in the NBA. Right? He is not Steph Curry, who's at the twilight of his career. He's not Luka and Shai, who are, of course, pseudo point guards, more just absolute on-ball hubs, but still better than De'Aaron Fox. Jalen Brunson, better than De'Aaron Fox. Is he better than a Kyrie Irving right now? I guess you could say maybe availability-wise before this season, but is he better than Kyrie Irving right now? I'm not 100% sure. De'Aaron Fox is fascinating because I think the idea of pairing up a point guard who's only going to be 28 going into this season, who has immense speed, great finishing ability, and has done okay from three-point land, although he's not been elite. He did peak at around 37% from three a couple seasons ago, dropped down to about 30% on average across the Spurs and the Kings last season. But pairing up a guy that has immense paint presence, is a good passer, a good on-ball defender, one time led the NBA in steals per game, like that's a good idea for the Spurs. And in general, I think, okay, that's fine, right? Like committing that type of money to a point guard when you have a center like Victor Wembanyama and you need to build for him and he's ready to compete now. He's in his prime now, basically. And not that he can't get better, but you don't know for big men in their careers if you're going to be able to rely on Victor Wembanyama in year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 when he technically enters his quote-unquote prime. You just never know. He's clearly good enough to compete now. But for the Spurs, committing that amount of money when you also have Stephon Castle and then also just lucked into Dylan Harper, I think it's a little bit ridiculous. Now, did they have to do it? Some would argue no. Some would argue yes. I don't really think that their back was against the wall. Now, having De'Aaron Fox under contract does allow you to have better trade value, like I mentioned before with Kevin Durant, in the future. But I think we are now over the next 2 years going to be creeping into the idea of teams being more stingy with who they hand out max contracts to. If I'm a team looking to trade for a point guard and I can get De'Aaron Fox on a max, or maybe somehow I can get a Jalen Brunson on less than a max. And I know that's a different situation in New York with Jalen Brunson taking a pay cut for a team that his dad coaches for so that he could build a team around him. But just in general, you're always going with a Jalen Brunson, right? Or am I going to pay a max contract to De'Aaron Fox, who is a good player in this league, probably a top 10 point guard in this league, but he's not top 5. He's not top 3 at his position. When you look at Devin Booker is without a doubt top 3 at his position. And on certain days, and if he has a good season this year, he could be considered number 1. Of course, Anthony Edwards is going to come in there and has been vying for that spot, and many would give him that spot. If you want to consider Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a 2 instead of a 1, then of course Shai then slots in there. But Devin Booker has more accolades than De'Aaron Fox, is a better current player than De'Aaron Fox. He's a better passer. He's a better shooter. De'Aaron Fox is a better defender and a little bit more athletic, but you also could imagine that Devin Booker is going to age better than De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, of course, the injury hasn't been to his lower body. His recent one has been with his hand. But at the same time, like when your nickname is quick, right? When you are known for your speed and then you get into your late 20s, early 30s, you're not going to be bad. But if you lose 1/100th of your step, 1/100th of your athleticism, your game is completely different and you don't have a reliable jump shot to fall back on. You're only a one-time All-Star. You're a one-time All-NBA, which is good for you. Devin Booker, 4-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. Of course, even the All-Stars, you could argue that he deserved to be in a lot more. But you can imagine his game gracefully aging a lot better than De'Aaron Fox. I mean, De'Aaron Fox averaged 6.3 assists per game. Devin Booker averaged 7.1 assists per game last year, and a career high for him. And we could see if he could follow up on it this year with point book. Last year, 23.5 points per game for De'Aaron Fox, 25.6 for Devin Booker. What about rebounds? De'Aaron Fox a little bit better, 4.8 to 4.1. Listen, I'm not here to hate on De'Aaron Fox, but I just use this more as like not a teaching point, but a jump-off point for when you're comparing Devin Booker's 2-year extension and the record-setting amount of money and the people who are reacting to it and saying, like, why are the Suns doing this? I just personally think that contracts like this shed a better light on what the Suns are doing with Devin Booker, because also at the end of the day, the Spurs are doing this for somebody that they just traded for and somebody that they're likely going to trade in the future, not somebody that they're going to build their franchise around. Devin Booker is the Phoenix Suns franchise. Devin Booker will continue to be the Phoenix Suns franchise, and you give max money to your franchise player. De'Aaron Fox is not the San Antonio Spurs franchise player. If anything, they're paying him this money with the idea that they're probably going to try to get off of him and trade him in the next couple of years to fill in a better fit next to Carter Bryant, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, Victor Wembanyama, and the rest of the young core in San Antonio. And maybe it works out differently. Maybe De'Aaron Fox in that Spurs system playing off of Wemby next year, if he can go in completely healthy, maybe he goes out there and just absolutely dominates and somebody is willing to either trade for him or he is worth his contract value. And I'm not saying that he is the worst player of all time and he doesn't deserve to get paid a lot of money in the NBA, but this just proves more so to me the Phoenix Suns made the right decision locking up Devin Booker because he is in an echelon above De'Aaron Fox in the NBA, and he deserves to be paid that way. And De'Aaron Fox is getting his max amount of money as well. But what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I somewhere in between? Drop a comment, leave a like, let me know what you feel about Devin Booker getting paid just a couple of weeks after it happened, and if this De'Aaron Fox extension makes you feel any differently about it. PHNX Suns will continue to cover the Suns like nobody else, with film breakdowns from Steven, articles from Gerald, mini pods from me, and of course live shows 5 days a week at 3 o'clock where we dive into the most intriguing, fun, and topical Suns discussions out there, live on YouTube, on your audio feed, on TV, and so much more. So we'll see you around. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.